Okay guys, welcome to the rigging tutorial videos. This will be the first one. What we're going to do in this one is we're going to bring in a character and I'll show you where to find that. And then for this video, we're just going to build the joints and the skeleton. So that's what we're going to do here. That's going to be our goal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to File and I'm going to import. And then let me find, there we go. So the file that you're going to import is called anatomybasemesh.obj, and that'll be on the server for you to get in. This is just an OBJ file, so that's why we have to import it, because it won't just open because it's not an actual Maya file. It's kind of like, it's like a JPEG for 3D. That's what an OBJ would be like. So I'm just going to import that, and then here's our feet. We've got kind of a big character here, so this is the character that we're going to use to do our rigging tutorials. So what I'm going to do first is I am going to take and come up here to shading and turn on X-ray joints. And what that will do is I'll be able to see the joints through the geometry, and then we'll still be able to see solid geometry. So, and I'm actually going to do that in all of my windows. X-ray joints on all these windows. And that's just going to make it easier. So we are going to start out just starting to put in some joints. And where we're going to start is we're going to start right here in the middle. I'm going to come up here and make sure that I'm in the rigging menu set. I'm going to come up to skeleton and go to create joints. And what I'll do is the first joint that I'm going to put in is going to be right in the middle of the pelvis. It's called the root, and everything is going to branch off from that joint. That's going to be one of the most important joints in the skeleton. So let me go ahead and just make sure. I'm going to hit 4 just so I can see through this a little easier. Let me get off my tool first. And then I'll get my joint tool back, because I want to make sure that this is snapped right to the center line here, so it's right in the middle of the character. So, and then it's probably going to be right around here is a good place for it, maybe this section here. So I'm going to hold down X and click right there, and that is going to be my root joint. So, and I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about how these need to be named here in a second, but I'm just going to put the joints in on one leg first. So the next joint that we're going to need is going to be maybe right about here or so. This is going to be called the pelvis. So there's going to be, in this rig, we're going to have a root and a pelvis and then a hip joint. Some rigs don't do that. Sometimes they just go straight from the root to the hip. But when we do our rigging, especially for the finals, when we have our characters dancing, we're going to just want to have that little bit more control over the binding, especially on the backside. So this is just help us have a little bit more control. So that's going to be our pelvis, and then you're going to try to figure out exactly where the rotation happens inside the top of the hip, you know, where that little part of the femur goes up into the pelvis, and that's where the rotation is. Try and visualize where that is, and I'm going to guess maybe right around here. So that's going to be our first 3 joints, and now what I'll do is I'm just going to go to the side view, and you can see that's where they are. They're kind of too far back at this point. So what I'll do is, first thing I'll do is I'll just click off of that, and I'll click this first root joint right here. And I'm just going to move that forward. So, and you can kind of guess this first little joint here, that's your hip. Try to figure out, again, where is it that your hip is rotating from. So probably right about here. And that's going to be a good place to place that. So now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and keep going with our joints. So, and a good way to do that, if you have to stop and start with creating your joints like this, you can just come back over here, click the last one that you did so that it's highlighted with your joint tool. And then you can just keep going and putting in more joints. So what I'm going to do now is try to figure out where that rotation is in the knee. And sometimes if you have a really long bone like this, your joints will get really big, and that's okay. They'll still work the same way. It's just a way to help it be easier to visualize. So probably about there, maybe, yeah, probably about there. And then the next one is going to be the ankle. And what we're going to do here, probably around here is where the ankle will be. sort of where that rotation is on the ankle. And one other thing we have to really be thinking about here is see how this has just got a little bit of a bend? That's really important on a leg because what this is this tells Maya that this is the direction that this joint is supposed to bend. It's called a preferred angle. And this is something that you want to do here on the knees, probably on the elbows and some of the fingers as well, because this is going to tell Maya to bend in the right direction. If you don't do this, if this is straight down through all three of these joints, sometimes maybe it will bend backwards or sideways or something terrible and frightening that is wrong with your character. So just try to make sure to get this little preferred angle happening in your knee, and that will bend in the right direction. So now I'm going to zoom in to the feet. We'll start looking at the feet. And then the first joint that I'm going to pin in is the heel joint. And what I try to do is get this center of the joint right into, right at the edge of the geometry. And what that does is it kind of helps you be able to keep it from going through the floor. It sort of creates that bottom of the foot. So what I'll do is click here, and you see how that jumped back down because we have a shorter bone right here. So maybe about right here is a good place for the heel. And then the ball of the foot is going to be sort of even with where the ball is and right at the bottom. So maybe there. And then the toe is going to be maybe right around here. And then a good thing to always do when you're at the end of a joint chain is just do one more joint up here. And do you see how that shifted just a little bit? These little rotations that are in here, those are really important because those are called the joint orientations. And you just need to make sure that they're orientated in the right direction. Because the default is just with the world coordinates like this, but that's probably not going to be always what you want. So if you do just one more joint like this, and then delete this very last joint at the end, now you have all these joints in here, and they're all sort of rotated in the right direction. So that is your leg. So now what we need to do is we need to think about naming this stuff. So let's go ahead and start with the root right here. This is going to be the root joint, so that's what we're going to call it. And the thing about naming with rigging, it's so important. I mean, naming's always important for your hypershade and for your layers and your textures and all of that stuff. It's always really important, but especially in rigging, because rigging is really technical and there's a lot of parts. There's a lot of parts that will have very similar names if you don't name them correctly. And it's what you're doing, the whole idea of what you're doing is trying to create a character that's easy to use for someone else. So it's so important that you name things in a consistent way and that you name everything. Let me just check one time really quick and just make sure that that leg is correct from the front. So it's a little too far out that way, I think. So I think what I'll do is I'll just take this joint. Maybe I'll just do it with the pelvis. There we go. Just slide that just a little bit this way, just so that knee is sort of in the middle, and then you've got the foot joints coming down through kind of to the longest part of the foot between the front two toes. And that's just going to be a better placement for your joints. So back to naming, come back up here. This is our root joint right here, so I'm just going to name this root, and I'm going to use capital letters. I'm going to call it root_JT. And JT is short for joints, so I'm just going to label everything that we do with some kind of label like that. So this is the root, and then that's the root joint. So then the next joint is going to be, it's going to be a pelvis, and if you look at this, you can see that that's the left pelvis. So when you're looking at it from the front view, just think of it like you're looking at some other person and their left is on your right. That's how it works here. So this is going to be the left pelvis. So I'm going to do a capital L and the word pelvis. That's going to be the left pelvis. We've got the left hip. We have the left knee. Whoops. There we go. And then I'll go to the side view here just to see everything. We've got the left ankle. Left heel. left ball, and left toe. So now what you should always do definitely is anytime you do something like that, go back and check it and make sure it's right. So we got the root joint, left pelvis, left hip, left knee, and I've not put in my joints. Do you see I forgot to put in my labels? So I'm just going to put in an underscore JT. Oops. All right, let me copy that again. And then my hip, and I'll just paste that. Knee. Just go to the side here. Ankle. Heel. Ball. And toe. So that is the joints for our leg. And now what we can do is there's a really easy way to just mirror it over, and there's a couple settings we can change so it will rename everything how we want, and it will make it really, really easy. So what we'll do is I'm going to go ahead and look at it from the front here. And I'm going to select this left pelvis right here because we're going to mirror it across this joint right here. You want to make sure not to select this one because it'll double the joint, and that's not what you want. So you're going to select the left pelvis joint, come up to skeleton, and go down to mirror joints option box. And you're going to mirror across the YZ axis. If you look down here, the Y is right on top of the Z, and we're mirroring across it. So that's the YZ axis. I'm going to search for all of the capital L's that I put in for indicating that it's the left side. And I'm going to leave that underscore in there as well. And then I'm going to put in all the capital R's for what it's going to replace all of those L's with. And that's going to rename everything automatically. So let me go ahead and just do that. So now you can see we have both legs done. And we kind of really only had to do one of them. So let me just double check. You can see that's a little bit weird. So I think I'll go ahead and just get rid of that first underscore. So we don't really need that. And then we have the right hip joint, right knee joint, right ankle joint, right heel, right ball, right toe. That's exactly what we need right there. So that is our lower half of our body. So next what we need to do is start doing the spine. So what we'll do is we'll get our joint tool again, and we're going to click this root joint because we're going to branch off of the root joint. And I'm going to do this from the side. So there's going to be a joint maybe about here, probably. That's going to be called the back root. So there'll be the regular root joint, which is the main one, and then the back root. And then we'll do maybe 6 joints for the spine, and then 3 for the neck, and 1 for the head. So I'll just go ahead and put those in now. And then there's going to be the base of the neck, the middle, and then the base of the head, and then the top of the head, which some people will just put it in the middle. Kind of always like to put it at the edge. And then we'll just do one more after that so it's orientated in the right way. Did you see how that shifted? I'll show you again. See how those little indicators on the inside, they're sort of even with the world coordinates. And then if I do one more, they shift and they point towards that joint. That's what you want to do to make sure that all the orientation is correctly created on your joints. And then I'll just take this last joint and delete it. Might actually just move this a little too, just a tiny bit, just like that. So now what we have to do is go back in and rename these, because they're all called just joint whatever again. So this is our back root. And then we've got back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then what I'll do is just copy this really quick. Make sure there's nothing in front of it that's weird. Copy this, and then we can just go up through here and just change the numbers. That's 2. 3. 4. 5. And 6. Let me just check that and make sure. Yeah, we got back root, back 1, back 2, back 3, back 4, back 5, back 6. Yes. Then the next one is going to be neck 1. And I'll go ahead and copy this one again. This is neck 2. This one is neck 3. And then this will be the head joint. So let me just double check that again. You've got back 5, back 6, neck 1, neck 2, neck 3, and the head. Yep, so that's our spine. So we've got that all set up. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to start doing the arms and then the hands. So let's go ahead and start out. Yeah, we'll start out from here. So what I want to do is I'm going to put a joint sort of right here, and that's going to be the collarbone. That's going to help us sort of hunch our shoulders and move them back and shrug and things like that. Then we'll have a joint for the shoulder, so you can actually rotate that shoulder all around. And then we'll have an elbow. We'll have a joint sort of in the mid forearm, and that's going to be your wrist. That's going to help you twist the lower part of your arm. And then at the bottom of the hand, we'll have a joint called the hand, and then the fingers will branch off of that. So that's how we're going to set that up. So we're going to start with, let me get our joint tool again, and I'm going to branch off of this joint right here. And then probably right around here, kind of not all the way out here to where you sort of visualize the collarbone, but you know how the collarbones are really only connected right in the middle at the front, and that's how they rotate. I'm going to put it a little closer to the middle, just like that. And then try to figure out where you think the rotation of the shoulder happens. If you can think of that ball joint that goes from the humerus into the shoulder blade area, probably something like that. And then we've got the elbow, which is going to be probably here. We've got the wrist in the mid forearm, and then the hand sort of at the bottom of the hand. Now what we need to do is look at it from the top and just make sure, and we're going to branch off of this and keep going with the hand in a second, but let's just make sure that this is right first from the top. So yeah, see how it's way back next to the spine? So we want to pull this forward, sort of maybe to the middle, something like that. Put that shoulder joint right in the middle, and then actually what we probably want to do is to get rid of these so we can make sure that we get the right sort of preferred angle in there. So I'm actually just going to push this back a little, just like that. And then we'll get the joint tool again, and I'll click that one, sort of go in the middle of the forearm here, and then at the bottom of the hand. Try to get that as straight as you can, because you don't really want this to be bending in the middle. It's really going to just twist more than anything. And And then let's see from our other angles. That looks like it's probably going to work. Let me see it from the front. Okay, we can take this and just sort of, actually we just, whoops, take that one and just pull it down a little, and then pull this one down a little as well. And that's going to be our arm. So let's go ahead and name our arm first. This is going to be the left collar. We've got the left shoulder. And if you didn't know, when you're typing in here, if you just hit a space, it will automatically make an underscore. So that might make things a little bit easier. This is the left elbow. That's your left wrist. And the left hand. Okay. So now we need to make the fingers, which is going to be, that's going to be kind of tedious, and I'll probably just show you a couple of them and then you can finish off the rest. And then I will go ahead and show you how to mirror it. And it actually just mirrors the same way. You're going to select the collarbone and then mirror it across, and the whole hand will go over there. So let me just go ahead and start out, and we'll look at this from the top. It'll be easier from the top. Let me actually just move this a little. Just scooch that a little bit that way, and this one too, just scooch it a little. All right, so I am going to do just the middle finger right now. Let me just make sure and see really quick if we got, yeah, we got a little bit of curve in our fingers. So we'll have our little preferred angles when we get to that point. But I'm just going to do the middle finger first. And then from there, I can go ahead and we can create the rest of everything else. So we'll start off with our joint tool and we'll connect to the hand joint. And then I'm just going to go in and put in a joint for all the knuckles and the end of the finger. So maybe about here. The end of the finger. And then I'll just do one more. So again, so we make sure that the angle is correct that we want. And I'll select that last joint and delete it. And then what I'll do is come from the side. Let me go ahead and just make that easier to see there. And we'll just start moving this into the right place. So we'll just move this up so it's sort of in the middle of the hand there. And then just try to center these joints where you think they should be on the fingers. And there should be just a little bit of, you know, a little bit of a bend right there. Maybe this needs to come up a little bit more. You can do this too in the perspective view if that helps. Try to just get it so that it's sort of lined up with the geometry of the finger. But it still has a little bit of a curve. That's right. Just like that. So then we're just going to name this. This is middle. It's going to be left, middle, middle one, joint. And I'm going to copy this. And then the next one is going to be left middle 2. So then I'm just changing the numbers. All right, so then this will rotate the hand and move it around, and then these will control the fingers. So we've got our left hand joint, left middle 1 joint, left middle 2, left middle 3, and left middle 4. So that's going to be how you're going to do the fingers. I'm going to show you how to do the thumb. Everything else is just going to be the same. You're going to get your joint tool, start here, and then start clicking in where the joints are on the fingers. Go to the different angles and adjust them and make sure that they're in the right place. And then just name them just like we did. The thumb is kind of different just because it goes off in a little different direction. So I'm going to do that one from the top here. And you kind of need to just see where the joints are in your thumb. So you've got one that's kind of down here somewhere. Maybe more like that. Then you've got one sort of at the base of the actual thumb. You've got one maybe about here, and then you've got your end of your finger, and then you've got the last one that we're going to create that we're going to delete to make sure that our joints are oriented correctly. And then I'll go ahead and come back, oops, and just start placing these. And I'm going to probably, I'll do it from the front. Might be easier to start there. Start sort of pushing these down into place so that they match up better with the thumb geometry. So yeah, and then we're going to have, I'm going to go ahead and just paste this. This is going to be left thumb 1. And then we'll just go down, paste that in and change the numbers. Okay, and that's the thumb. So then what you'll do is you will go ahead and do the fingers just the same way that you did this one. What you don't want to do is sort of duplicate this and move it. You want to draw new joints every time because you want to make sure that they're exactly the right orientation. And if you just copy and paste, it's going to be weird and it's not ever going to work quite like you think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this recording just for a second, finish off this hand, and then I will show you how to mirror again. So I'll be right back. All right, so I have my hand built. So, and you can just see, I think I still need to name my pinky and my ring finger joints, but you can see I've got my index joints. I'll go ahead and do my ring. That's ring 2. Got ring 3. Go ahead and change that number. And ring 4. Oops. Ring 1, ring 2, ring 3, ring 4. And then pinky. Pinky 2. Pinky 3. Pinky 4. All right, and I'll just double check those. Pinky 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's it. That's our hand joints right there. So that's going to be a hand that you can really work with later on. It's going to be good. So now then to mirror. So I'm just going to select my collarbone, skeleton, mirror joints, You're going across the Y and Z axis. I'm going to leave this because I've been naming everything consistently, and so I've got my capital R's with the underscore being replaced by my capital R's. I think I said R's on this. Capital L's with capital R's. That's what I want. So then I'm just going to go ahead and mirror this, and now I can see I got my right collar joint, right shoulder, right elbow, right wrist, right hand, right middle 2, right middle 3, right middle 4. If you feel like you want to come and check the other fingers, go ahead and do that just to be sure. Right middle 1, that's the ones that we just did, I think. Let's look at that thumb. Right thumb, right 2, 3, 4. Right index, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right ring, 1, 2, 3, 4. You need to always be checking and double checking, especially in rigging. That's why I keep going over and doing everything, making absolutely certain that everything is exactly how you want it to be. Because then your rig will be real easy to work with, and your animators will like you a lot more than some other people with difficult rigs. So this is the skeleton right here. This is all the joints that we're going to need. In the next video, we are going to start talking about the IK handles and some of the constraints on those and some of the setup that we're going to put in place so that we can work with the feet later on. So thanks.